become fools for you, kingdoms to ruins for you. Paper finds ground in you, music finds sound in you. Everything rising, everything rising. Oh, everything rising, singing.
Hello, maker of the moon. Your creation has inspired my every move. You're the science in the stars. There is beauty, there is fire in your eyes. Here we are, face to face, lost in one.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us on Real Talks. This is episode 6. This is every Wednesday night where we talk about real-life issues that are affecting the body of Christ and talk about issues all the way from church to education to sports to whatever's affecting your life. We want to talk about it. And we believe that a lot of Christians are struggling with real-world issues because the church is being very quiet about these real-world issues. And so tonight, I'm super excited to be talking about what we're going to be talking about. Last week, you can go and find all these videos on our Facebook page, and it's probably easier on our YouTube channel. They just pop right up. Last week, we talked about church planning, and we talked about what that is and what that looks like, starting something brand new from the ground up. And then next week, we are talking about life after sports, and we actually have some college and professional basketball players that are going to come in and talk about life after sports. But tonight, we're talking about education, and education for a lot of these people, I think we can all agree, nobody really knows what's going to happen, and we're doing our best we can with what information we have. But I'm so thankful for our guests tonight coming in and talking about. They know a lot more than I do. And so any questions you have, we're going to try and get to. We got a team feeding these questions to me, and so we may not get to all the questions. We usually never do, but don't stop from commenting your questions. And we may give you the answer you don't like. We may give you the answer you do like, but we're just going to try and give our answers the best we know what it is, and you can take it and do what you want to do with it. So just in a moment, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell their name, what school they're at, how long they've been in education. And before we do that, I'm going to pray real quick, and then we'll get started. God, I'm so thankful for tonight. Lord, I'm thankful for allowing this to be here and to talk about education. And Lord, I'm thankful for the people that you've provided to be up here tonight. Lord, I pray that you would just use this information to edify the body in some way, shape, or form. And Lord, I just thank you for what you're doing, even on the earth now, that you're still moving and you're still good. Despite the chaos, despite the unknown, Lord, you're still in control. And I pray that we would rest in that, knowing that you are still for us and that you're still good. And we love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. So, with no further ado, I'm going to just go ahead down the line and just tell us your name and what school you're at and how long you've been in education.
Okay, I'm Marvin Smith. I work at Lincoln School. This will be starting my 8th year there. I'm the master teacher at Lincoln School.
Awesome.
I am Bridget Love. I teach first grade at Chandler Elementary, and I've been teaching first grade for 14 years.
Stephanie Henrich. I'm the principal at Chandler Elementary, and I've been at Chandler for 24 years.
I'm Kelly Dora. I'm the Behavior and Autism Specialist for Warwick County School Corporation. I've been doing that for Warwick County School Corporation for 26 years now.
That's awesome. So there we go. So we got all different roles, all different amounts of years. And if you come to our church, you also know I'm a teacher. This is only my 2nd year. So these guys are way more advanced than me. And so with that being said, I think let's just start off with some generic things. How fast is the information changing that you're getting from your school corporations?
I'll take that one. I finished my plan for reentry to the school yesterday. Did not put it out yet because we had a meeting this morning. Some changes were made this morning, and I put it out, and about 10 minutes after I released it, Governor Holcomb announced that the change in the mask mandate.
Yeah,
so
wow.
It will change again. So it's changing daily, and sometimes even within the hour.
Wow. Yeah. I think we could say the same for EVSC too.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So again, the information we're getting, it may be true for right now, but the time we leave this tonight, it may have already changed. So with that being said, what is the school doing? What are your schools doing to best prepare for the students to come back? The plan is in August sometime. What is the school doing now to best prepare what's going on in the world?
Do you want to take it from SEL?
Sure. It's a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but this is a good panel because we've got both folks here locally from EVSC and from Warwick County School Corporation. So I'll let you guys talk a little bit about, some of the things that EVSC is doing. I do want to say this about them from the standpoint of social emotional learning and wellness, is that they've got a phenomenal program in EVSC. The superintendent is incredibly supportive of that there, and their director of neural education is top notch. So I know that you guys have a lot of stuff going on there, and that's really exciting. In Warwick County, a lot of our schools have been working really hard. One of the things I like to brag about in Warwick County are the relationships that our teachers have with kids. And so some of the things that Warwick County is doing, besides preparing for a multitude of plans for our students, and for our staff is to recognize that they're having to come up with plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D.
Yeah.
And we like to joke about it because that's a healthy way to deal with that mentally and emotionally. But, they're really trying to plan for everything from we're going to be attending full-time, just a regular school year. And how do you do that while maintaining safety? And I will tell you that having been up around some of those conversations, I'm not in a lot of those, but I will tell you that being around the people who are in Warwick County, they are taking the safety and the welfare of the kids and of the teachers into account. They're serious about it, they're diligent about it, and also understanding that that impacts people emotionally, both parents, teachers, and students, and the administrators up there too. We're talking about a lot about teacher wellness and mental health right now, and student mental health right now, but also those administrators. That's a lot of pressure to deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow. One of the things that I do want to take an opportunity to say is, is be praying for those people making those decisions.
Yeah, amen.
No matter what decision they make, there are a lot of people that are unhappy with that.
Yeah.
There is no right answer for them.
Yeah.
So just be praying for their insight and guidance and wisdom. And we have
absolutely.
really good people in Warwick County making those decisions.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of really nice work with the safety of that. And I know today they had some discussions about looking for staff wellness and mental health and those issues as well. And that's really important. Department of Education's made that really clear. You've got to put educator wellness. You really have to have well educators to educate students. So they're doing a lot of things like that. I'm excited for you guys to be able to talk about some of the social emotional learning things that are going on in Vanderburgh County. They're doing some great work there.
Absolutely. So from administrator standpoint, what are you doing to kind of get your staff ready, your teachers prepared, and then what are you doing for the families and the students? I know it's a lot to it.
It is a lot. I'm trying to keep my staff as informed as I possibly can, and the information is changing so quickly that I don't, want to tell them one thing, and then so I'm trying to be concise on what I am putting out. Mainly, what I'm focusing on right now, we have wonderful teachers in Warwick County. We're going to be able to teach them. It's getting them there and keeping them safe. And that structural process of how do they move through the lunch line safely? How do they, what's the classroom going to look like? What will dismissal be? What will arrival look like? So that is mainly what I've been spending my time on, is the logistics of moving them through the day safely, because I know my teachers can, we've got it once we get the kids in there. So that's what's taking up a lot of my time, just making sure that it's right.
Yeah, for sure. And then from a teacher standpoint, I know what I've done, but what's something you guys have done to prepare with the information you have now, if anything yet?
Yeah, I think we're all just kind of busting back in those classrooms and setting them up with the guidelines that are put in place to keep them all safe, and just looking at the classroom and how to change things. Like Mrs. Henrich said, once they're there, we'll be able to teach them, but also wrapping our brain around our classroom setup is completely different than what we're used to. So trying to think about how we can still teach effectively and using all the guidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. Marv, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And just being creative and realistic. Like you mentioned before, you might have had plans that you've used over the course of the last 15 years and these icebreakers and such, but now you have to be realistic with yourself and realize that's not going to work anymore. What am I going to do? And that's going to take a team approach to make sure that gets taken care of. It's no more can you truly work in isolation and do a great job. You need to work together with your staff, and we have to depend on each other more than ever now, because this is not something that we could have prepared for.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things, too, I want to stress is that to my teachers, especially in Warwick County, just because we're going to have students spaced out, or we're going to try to have them all facing the same way, we're not going to stop doing best practices. We're not going to stop engaging students, giving them those mindfulness activities, those brain breaks, things like that. We're not going to sacrifice curriculum and education. We're just creatively coming up with ways to do that safely.
That's something else I would say about the administrators too, is listening to them, knowing how their teachers teach, and knowing how teachers are doing such a terrific job of engaging students. and really relating well with students, and coming back and asking the questions, do we have additional tools that we can bring to those teachers? Do we have some additional techniques and things that we can share? And our administrators in Warwick County, I think, are doing a really nice job with that. And we have great teachers, so those teachers are stepping up to that call anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something that nobody's ever have to deal with before, all the way from the top of the government to all the way to the bottom, and everybody. It's new for everybody. And I think it's best to remember that before you make judgments, before you say your opinion, to realize that this is something nobody's ever had to deal with before. And so we do have some questions coming in I want to get to. And this first one is probably more towards Kelly with social emotional learning. It says, how do you think the mental health of our children is being affected by all these issues, by all these different things that are coming into the school? How do you think for kids that maybe have behavioral issues, what are some things that the school is going to be able to do and have in place for these type of students?
So I'm gonna give some hard statistics.
Yeah.
To start with that. But one of the things I do want to say is it's a really unique, interesting opportunity. This is a really interesting moment in time for education. This is the first time in my lifetime that the whole country and perhaps the world has been hit with the same crisis.
The same thing, yeah.
The same thing everywhere. And we also got hit at the same time with a second, crisis that has caused a lot of people to really pause and take some thought about equity, right?
Yeah.
And those things happen simultaneously over this break. So we really want to take some time and acknowledge that. We want to take some time and acknowledge both of those things. And what I want to say about that before I give you some statistics and give you some here's what we can do about that is I want to say this. I had a conversation with some people the other day in the school corporation, and we were talking about the difference between, what do you do in a moment of crisis? And I wish for the people that are watching and listening to this, I wish that you could have seen what I saw. I wish you could have seen what the teachers of our local schools did that is nowhere in their job description during this crisis.
Yeah.
We watched people feed the community. We watched people clothe the community whose jobs it was to stand in a classroom and teach children. And what happened here in our local community is how blessed are we to watch these people absolutely rise up. And so when we think about this crisis, we can look at this one of two ways, and we can say, I'm going to panic about this. This is a crisis. This is a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing. It is a pandemic. But for educators, I look at this and I go, what a moment in time. What a moment in time for educators to really to come together and to rise up and to really do something that is really great.
For sure.
And we know that we've had people in the community that have been hit hard by this. Emotionally, physically, mental health-wise. Some of those statistics that we have to prepare for in students coming back. For example, we know that when we look at DCS cases, for example, we know that the incidence of those numbers dropped dramatically during that crisis, while the incidence of traumatic events for kids rose a lot during crisis. And the education system has to be prepared to support those kids and those families, coming back after that. So a lot of our schools are really making great strides with trauma-informed practices, trauma-informed care. That's going to be really important, and it's a beautiful thing that so many of the schools in the area have been really working, to receive that and ready to receive and ready to act on that. So I just encourage people to, instead of panicking about this, really look at this as an opportunity. This is really an opportunity, and we know that's an opportunity because look at how the educators responded
The first time
in that crisis. In that first crisis, that just watching people in EVSC and watching people in Warwick County, and I'm sure in school corporations all over the country, driving to kids' houses, right, doing drive-bys in their neighborhoods, finding ways to do graduation, being creative, like you said, finding ways to work together. We had no idea, and just doing it on the fly. That's what great educators do. And so from a social emotional standpoint, I'm giving you a long answer to that.
No, you're
but,
good, man. That's good.
But but there are some hard numbers out there. We've got to be
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah, for sure.
To receive that.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, the one other thing I do want to say about that, Caleb, is that we also have to be ready to support our teachers and our building administrators, because when some of those stories start to arrive at school, and they're going to,
Yeah.
some of them are,
Yeah.
that wears a tremendous amount of burden on people who receive that. That's really hard.
Yeah.
To have to make a report on a family or do something like that. Nobody wants to do
Yeah.
that. It's incredibly emotionally draining for everybody involved in that. And so we want to be praying for those teachers about that, as well as those families. And then we want to be praying for those administrators, because every single teacher takes that and lays that in the lap of those administrators.
Yeah.
And then those administrators are carrying that
Have to
emotional
deal with
burden
that,
too.
yeah.
So that's for me, that's a really strong thing for us to be to be praying and thinking
Yeah,
about
for sure.
from a social emotional standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really good. And then we have another one here that kind of goes with that. And it says, what can parents do to help their children throughout this season that we are in? So maybe I'll stop right there because it's kind of a complicated question. But what can parents be doing to help their kids prepare to come back to the school? As we know, school is going to look like in the fall with right now. Is there anything that parents can be doing at home?
You go ahead.
No, I'll take that one. I believe it's going to be best for parents to establish some type of routine at home. Like you mentioned, your lifetime and my lifetime, I've never had a situation where I haven't physically been with my students for 5+ months at a time. The routine is completely thrown off. The bedtime is thrown off. The level of academics that they receive on a daily basis has changed. So if you can instill some regular routine for them so they can be prepared to learn and not be on a computer or sleeping until 12 o'clock or just have some sort of discipline going on in the home is going to be so beneficial for families when they do return to school because they've been out for so long.
Yeah.
I think another thing that parents can do, talk about wearing the mask, talk about the changes that will be at school. Most school corporations are posting their reentry plans online. If you can get a hold of those and read those, you'll kind of know what to talk to your students about. Hey, you're going to go in this door this year. Usually we go in the front door,
Yeah.
but this time maybe drive them by and show them you'll be going in this store this year. Your teacher's going to be wearing a mask or a face shield.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of them.
Yeah.
Even the no-touch zones, like try not to touch everything, those safety things. I posted something on my wall about helping your kids learn to open up the things that are in their lunchbox. Just you don't want someone else touching
doing
the
all that
Go-Gurt,
stuff,
before they put it in their mouth. So just anything you can do to help with that. And then if you are a family that prays, I would encourage you to pray with your child and talk to your child about praying for their teachers and praying for their classmates as these changes happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think so. We both teach first grade, and I think interesting on you. You have way more experience than me. So with me, it's so funny because the last year is my first year, and then all of a sudden it just stops, and all of a sudden you're into this, and I have no idea what's happening. What I'm supposed to be doing. I have no idea. But for you, for getting these kindergartners who didn't have the full year of instruction, what is something that their parents or their families could be doing at home to help better prepare them to be ready for first grade when they enter that door the first time?
Yeah, echoing what he said is establishing that routine. Kids have been outdoors playing on video games. They have not really followed a true routine, and it's going to be a rude awakening for some of our little ones. They're going to be so tired, even whether it's virtual or in the classroom.
Yeah.
They're not used to that sustained attention. So establishing that routine is going to be huge, and just reassuring them that the year's going to be different, but you're still going to have fun. You're going to see your friends, and just really encouraging and building up school instead of maybe your fears being portrayed
I think
onto
that's good
them
too,
type thing.
So with that, I think that brings us to the next topic with the social distancing that's trying to be portrayed in church. We're not in churches, in schools. Sorry, I'm a church fight all the time. In schools, and with the mask, how can parents put a positive spin on maybe a thing that their kid, I'm not wearing that mask. Forget that. how can we put a positive spin for families to see, maybe not in such a bad way, but how can we encourage these families to talk to their kids about, hey man, you got to do this because of this, but not freak them out so much. So I know it's a loaded question. but-
Well, one of the things, I had a teacher, we started summer school, so
Yeah.
we're in-person summer school right now, and I had a teacher come up with a great idea, and she called them the Masketeers.
There you go.
And you have your mask on, and you're a Masketeer, and I think it is important to make it a positive thing. Like, we
Yeah,
have to
for
keep
sure.
others healthy, so you have to wear this mask so we can all help one another instead of you need to wear your mask so that you don't get sick.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So just put that positive spin on it.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think having masks that are fun, if you
Yeah,
if you
creative,
can
yeah.
afford to make a cloth mask
Yep,
that's
yeah.
a certain football team that they like or whatever it is, they may be more apt to wear those.
Wearing that, yeah.
And I also like what you mentioned, just being transparent with children at an age-appropriate level. Kids know if you're lying, and they also know if the whole school is lying to them.
Yeah.
It's to keep you safe. It's part of the mandates we have now.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is just what we're going to do. We don't know how long it'll last. It may be over within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
We may continue this on until next year, and that way they can have some type of expectation of what is going on and how long am I going to be doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
Can I make a quick
Yeah,
comment
go
about
ahead, yeah.
our special needs kids?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so if anybody's looking for a resource on that, there are a couple of really good resources I would encourage people to take a look at. The Indiana Resource Center for Autism.
Okay.
If parents will just do a search, just type that right in, Indiana Resource Center for Autism. You will find that Dr. Kathy Pratt and the group up there has put together a fantastic set of parent resources.
Okay, yeah.
For, of course, that's specifically
towards that.
designed for
Mhm.
students with autism, but those same resources are fantastic for other children as well. Included on that resource, you will find social stories, a lot of research-based intervention. So they've put together beautiful social stories to do with students with disabilities. Those will be great stories for any student. But specifically, we know the research tells us that social stories can be really helpful for our students with disabilities. And you'll also find on there's a whole bunch of videos on there where you can actually go in and see teachers explaining, this is why I have a mask on,
Yeah.
right? This is what it's going to look like. This is what my classroom looks like. This is me without a mask. This is me with a mask. But there's some really good resources through the Indiana Resource Center for
Okay, that's good to
Autism.
know, yeah.
And we'll talk about a few of the other resources when we come back to the SEL
yeah.
stuff. But I
Yeah.
did want to point that out to parents if they're
Yeah, that
looking
is
at
good.
some
yeah,
resources.
Yeah, and we can post these resources on the link below, or I'll comment them if parents want to look back at them. We've got another question here about curriculum, and it says, are the kids going to start where they left off when the schools closed back in March, or will they begin the curriculum for their current grade? So I don't know if that's being a school level
That is
thing.
not a behavior specialist question. I was
I
just
can
wondering.
answer that.
pass that
Would
one.
In
you
case
like
anybody's
to?
wondering.
Either one is fine.
Okay. I'll talk about in general, and you talk about what you can do in your classroom. We are not going to spend the first 6 or 8 weeks reviewing. We will review a little bit here and there, like daily morning language arts and
Yeah.
math reviews. But we are going to jump into our curriculum and just spend more time on those standards. So we have been working diligently with our teachers, and at our school in Warwick County, the teachers have identified the standards, the critical standards that the children were not taught
Yeah.
in person
Okay.
of the last year.
Yeah.
So, Mrs. Love has those standards that were not taught in person.
Okay.
My daughter just happened to be in her classroom last
Yeah.
year, and I know the ones that weren't taught in person. So you want to talk about how that teacher next year can drill down?
Yeah, like she said, so I have a list. Some of those things don't correlate with my standards until later in the year. So I just know when I get to those standards, I need to be very diligent about presenting it
Yeah.
and them understanding it better. Like she said, we've got a lot to cover in this year. I'm not going to ignore that the year was interrupted and we closed differently. So there will be time for review. But at the same time, there's things that I have to accomplish as a first grade teacher. So we will push forward and go into those standards for the current year
Okay,
with
yeah.
some review.
Yeah. And so when those decisions are being made, are they being made from a corporation level, or that's not more of an like a school thing?
Well, we're very fortunate that we have an elementary curriculum director, and we also have a high school curriculum director.
Okay.
And she, the elementary director, Mrs. Redmond, she's fabulous about making sure that she stays on top of those things, and she's already planning out. She relays those things to us. We have meetings with teachers. She has meetings with teachers, curriculum coordinators.
Yeah,
Every
yeah,
building
yeah.
level has a curriculum coordinator too, and they are relaying things to the teachers as well.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else got anything else on that? Or
Yeah, I just think this is a time more than ever to practice patience with your students. There are some children who have 2 working parents at home that may have received very little instruction, and you have students that have been on the flip side. And you really don't know what you're getting until the students come back to the building. We have a lot of great teachers in EVSC and Warwick County, and they're able to differentiate to a level where we're going to meet your kid where they are. No matter where they are, we're going to make sure that they're learning at the level that they should on grade level. And even if they're behind, we're still going to give them on grade level work. We just may give them some different support so we can give them a leg up.
yeah.
So
that's good.
it's going to look different, but yeah, if
Yeah.
your student's in 3rd grade, they're going to get 3rd grade work.
Yeah.
We're also going to need, parent support at home, and
Yeah. For sure.
as always, but
Yeah.
now more than ever.
More than ever, yeah. So yeah, parents, that's huge right now for supporting your teachers and your schools, and not just letting your kids slack off. I think more than ever, you really need to make sure they're getting their stuff done. And so I think with everything, with curriculum to procedures to lunch to entering buildings to after school activities, like all this is going to look different. So in a more practical way, maybe you guys have looked at this or talked to this with your teams or your buildings or your teachers. What will school look like in August as far as lunch, dismissal, and recess? Those are 3 kind of things maybe people are wondering. Those are 3 big things during the day. So you have anything that you've gotten on that with?
And it's going to look different in my
And
building.
it's gonna look
and
different
gonna
every
look,
school, yeah.
per school. But I can tell you we're doing our best to social distance children during the lunch. Some students are eating in the cafeteria spaced out. Some students are eating in cafeteria and gymnasiums spaced out. Some will eat in their classrooms. We're doing the very best we can. We have a lot of kids to feed, and spacing them out takes a lot of time and a lot of room and all of that. So lunches, we won't be using the touch pen. Normally the students type in their number. They won't be doing that. They'll be lining up in alphabetical order by class, and
Okay.
just, they'll recognize the student and they'll say their name and go through the lunch line that way. They will go through the lunch line spaced out. Recess, I've alternated recesses. My 4th grade may be out on the big playground while the kindergarten is out on the small playground, and they're separated from one another. Lots of hand washing, hand sanitizer, misting the classroom
Yeah.
with spray, things like that. And then dismissals, instead of just the bell ringing and everyone goes to wherever
Yeah,
they're
it's
supposed
crazy,
to
yeah.
go. We have different entrances and exits that they're designated. We have buses, split up. Of course, supervision everywhere.
Yeah.
And we'll be calling classes at a time or
time,
buses at a
okay.
time to limit those number of students in the hallways.
Yeah.
And you bring up a really hot topic. Transitions is always a big deal
Yeah.
in school. Moving children in and out of the building. One thing that we're trying to do now is limit the amount of transitions that students have. So like you mentioned about specials, you might be receiving music class
In your room.
homeroom
Yeah,
classroom
yeah.
to limit that. So teachers, if they can, they will be teaching from a cart, and they'll bring the material to that classroom to limit the transitions.
Yeah.
And I know that's different for our students, so that might be something that you want to speak to your children about. Hey, you may not go to the music room or the art room for class as normal. They may come to your kindergarten classroom. It's just
Yeah.
something to think about. It's different.
Yeah, I think, like she said, it's going to be different at every school because every school is so laid out so differently with number of students and people. So yeah, I think that's something to get your kids prepared for. That, especially if the older kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. We're talking more about elementary school tonight. That may have known it as a certain way, and then they go back and it's not that way. So I think that with emotional kids who like that routine and those procedures, something they've always known, and then you go and change it on them. I think that the parents have to be just intentional about that at home.
And coming back to the question about from a social emotional standpoint, helping to prepare their kids.
Yeah.
one of the things that parents can do, most of the things that parents could be doing right now to prepare their kiddos to come back are really simple. They're not super complex, like, getting on a schedule and saying we're going to start waking up at a certain time, we're going to start going to bed at a certain time. But this is a great thing. A parent has a choice. I have a choice as a mom or as a dad to say to my kid, I don't know what it's going to look like. It could be different. Or to say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear what lunch looks like this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be so cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you what, you can set your kid up for excitement, and I can't wait to see what this looks like. I can't wait to see what I hear when I get home. Or you can send your kid to school with fear and trepidation. And you set that stage starting tonight with those conversations with your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. Part of the brilliance and also the struggle is for all of these schools that are having to figure this out. Because you're right, what your school does and what your school does is going to meet the needs of your kids.
Yeah,
That's the beauty of personalized education in our schools. That's a beautiful thing. But all of us know that all of our kids are going to receive that better if our parents are helping to set those kids up
that's right.
with a positive expectation.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
right.
wait to see what that looks like. I can't wait till you come home and tell me how they did lunch today.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the music teacher came to your class?
Yeah.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
always had to go to the music teacher's class and she smelled like bacon, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of simple things, just in simple conversations, because we know our kids are listening. They're paying
that's right.
attention.
Yeah, that's good.
And I want to add to that because that's great. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for you to get closer with God and actually pray for peace and God's direction, because your children are going to pick up on your emotions, and it can be so damaging for them to go back and be so scared of the unknown. And it's just even hard for me to wrap my mind around this, that it's coming. School is going to start so fast. I have really got to get my ducks in a row and think of being the spiritual leader of my household and making sure my kids are prepared. It's right around the corner. It seemed like we just got put out of school just a couple of months ago, but it's been several months ago. So I'm not trying to scare anyone, but just think it'll be here in a few weeks, and you do want your children to be prepared for it, and you as well, because it's going to be stressful
on everybody.
And from a mental health standpoint, I think of all the anxiety and mental health issues that could have stemmed from all this stuff and how they've impacted the adults, let alone the children, and to make sure that you're prepared as a parent and then taking care of your children. It can be taxing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would definitely say try to be informed about the procedures that are going to happen at your school.
Yeah.
Most schools, unfortunately, you won't be able to eat lunch with your students this year. I had parents, in and out of the building all the time eating lunch with, so maybe make a special dinner, or you'll have, try to be creative in the ways that you're spending time with students, and know that ahead of time so that they don't see a reaction on your face if you're disappointed about something. Walking kids to class on the first day of school, that's going to be different, and that's sad to think about, but
just the reality
that's
we're
just
in.
the reality of what we're in. So pray about those things and be prepared, and get yourself in a spiritual mind of, we can get through this, we can do this.
And I think giving reassurance to those students that the teachers feel the same way. Like, I mean, I have thought numerous times about how those kiddos are going to come to my room without that parent walking them down. So reassuring your student that they are thinking the exact same thing that you are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, making that relatability for them. So, like, for our older kids that may be watching this, or someone who has a middle school or high schooler, we're talking about transitions, and maybe nobody on here knows. Maybe you guys have talked about this more at an administration level. Do you have any clue what that's going to look like for those parents maybe wondering what's middle school class changing and high school going to look like? Or is that something that not sure?
I mean, I don't teach at the high school or middle school, but I do know that students will be required to wear a mask in transitions, and anyone third grader over is going to have their mask on as of today, and we'll be doing some disinfecting in between classes. So it might be a minute. Mr. Johnson, he's the head of our custodial staff, and he just has done a fabulous job of preparing us, and we have new cleaners and things that kill germs within 30 seconds. 1 minute, things like that. So they'll be disinfecting between groups coming in and out. I think we can just try to talk to our kids about not gathering in the hallways. You know,
Yeah.
and just older kids, trying to put the mask under their nose or,
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. Just, you need to do it.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, yeah, that's good. I think a big some of the heroes in our schools is custodial staff.
yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
And
Absolutely.
they usually go under the radar, but now more than ever, you're realizing how important they are. So yeah, we appreciate you guys. If you're watching this, your custodial staff, and I think it's important to let families know how much they're doing behind the scenes that you'll never even know.
Oh.
And but school wouldn't function, especially now with the guidelines, if it wasn't for them, men and women. So we appreciate them. This is kind of a more generic question, and it says, what are some challenges you face in the education field being a Christian? So this is totally different than, the COVID thing with everything. So just you guys have all been in this for years now. So being a Christian, what are some challenges that you face on the daily in the field that you work in?
Okay, I'll take
If
a
any,
little bit
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
I think is where I find my comfort. I can't share that with my kiddos when I see that they're in fear or anything.
Yeah,
I
wow.
mean, my own 2 children at home, we have ways, whether it's singing a song or praying together, that comforts their anxiety and fear. And when I see students in my classroom that have fear or anxiety over a situation that's popped up, withholding my faith is really hard to do, especially even if it's a family I know is also believers, that I can't just announce that in front of my class. It's one of my struggles.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's difficult, so I try to find different ways to go about it. I let my students know how much I care for them and that I legitimately love them. I love them as an educator, and I do everything I can within reason to make sure they're taken care of. It's just, you just have to really use discernment to know, what should I be saying, what should I not be saying, and is this the time and the place for what I'm trying to do right now?
I think sometimes I feel a little isolated. I want to share I'm very outspoken, and I want to share my faith all the time, and sometimes I probably do too much. Bridget teaches, I'm her boss, and so you definitely know I'm a Christian, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because, I'm constantly trying to, but I think I want people to know. I want my light to shine so that people know that Jesus is inside of me. And I hope my kids know that. And I think they do. I tell my kids, I tell all of my students, I love you. I love you. When I'm disciplining a child, I try to do it just like I would with my own children and say, I love you. And everyone makes mistakes. And that it makes your heart hurt when you make a mistake. And, you can move on from this. So I try to instill that philosophy and that Christian and, that spirit. I want them, when they see me, I want them to see the love of Jesus.
Yeah, that's good.
I think everything she just said that's such a perfect portrayal of you, Steph. That's so true. I think for me, one of the hardest ones is seeing families that are really struggling, and individuals that are really struggling, and having to stay in my box as a behavior person because I can't look at that person and go, this is not really where your answer is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your answer to this problem is not going to come out of a behavior plan that we write.
Yeah.
Or some strategy
Yeah,
we're
so
going
much
to come
bigger
out
than
of
that,
today.
yeah.
And knowing that the only thing I can do about that is to go home and raise that person up in prayer.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I can't say what I would normally be able to say
Yeah, outside
to
of
somebody in
that,
that
yeah.
circumstance.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's really hard. That's a real struggle for me is walking out of there and going, gosh, my job prohibits me from perhaps saying words of
The truth in
encouragement
life,
and
yeah.
or even potential salvation to
Yeah,
somebody.
wow.
That's a really
Yeah.
hard thing for me
Right.
to walk away from.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, when I think of the true love of Christ, children pick up if there's something different about you.
That's right.
You don't have to necessarily say, hey, I'm a Christian over here.
They see it through your actions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love is an action. And
That's right.
Man, I like her.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I like her. I want to inquire more about you. And they know.
No, that's so true. And then people want to know, why are you always like this? Oh, my favorite question.
Yeah.
Right? I'll tell you in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I can't tell you at this conference table.
But you could even say,
No, that's
because
right.
of my faith.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
that's
And then
right.
you know what's a great segue? Like
That's
you
it.
said, I'll talk to you later
That's
about
right.
it. Like,
Yeah, and that's a fair answer for me. That's a great point, and I have said that before because of my faith. And then
Yeah.
people, they just sort of pause and go, "I can't talk about that right now, but
Yeah.
maybe some other time."
Yeah.
And I think when people see that, they want
They want
more
what
of
you
it.
have,
They're
yeah.
very curious, and they want more of it. They
Yeah.
want to know about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's encouragement for any Christian teacher, that sometimes your actions speak louder than your words. And you might feel that you're tied down with what you can say and do. They're always, the kids and your team and your staff, they're always watching your actions. And so I think that's the biggest encouragement to always remind us that we want to walk like Jesus walked, and I want to always smile. Even if I got something that's going on in my life through this, it's behind the mask, can be hard to see, but just my actions coming back to school, I want them to be different than someone who doesn't know Jesus. And people pick up on that, like you guys said. So, no, that's so good. I know a lot of you guys, probably more of the administrators, have been getting a bunch of questions and phone calls and emails to your schools from parents, concerned grandparents, who's ever the guardian, and that says, what have been the parents' biggest concerns? I don't know if you could just wrap that up maybe to one or two things with starting school back up for those of you who are going to be attending back in person. And then what have you guys done to put their minds at ease with those concerns? So I know you probably get a bunch of stuff. I can't imagine. But if there's like a few common ones, and then what have you guys done to kind of put them at ease with what you're going to do?
I think the two biggest questions we've had, what will virtual learning look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're still trying to figure that out. And I mean, we have a good core plan, but we want to continue to perfect that each
Yeah,
and
for
every
sure.
day. And so we're working on that continuously. And another one is, will they have to wear a mask?
Okay, yeah.
How will I get my child to wear a mask? There's such a big debate of, I don't want to wear a mask.
Yeah,
Everyone should wear a
one or
mask.
the other, yeah.
There's such a debate about that. Everyone feels like they have to pick a side. And we're just going to have to buckle down and say, number one, this is the rule, and
That's what we gotta
school's
do,
about
yeah.
rules. So we're going to have to do that. And we're going to do it in a positive way. And
Yeah, that's good.
so those are two things that,
I'd say another big one is safety. Some
Yeah.
parents are in a situation where they have to go to work. They do not have the opportunity to keep their children home, but they also want to make sure their children are safe. And rest assured, both districts that we work in, they are doing everything within reason to make sure your child is safe. It's our number one priority is to make sure they're safe, and then they can learn when they feel safe and they are safe.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of right now is just the safety.
Yeah, for sure.
have
Yeah.
you had any questions from parents?
I've had some questions, more of like, what does recess look like, or
Yeah,
what I'm going to be doing in my room, and I just reassure them that no matter where anybody's opinion stands,
Yeah.
I'm not intentionally going to put your child in
In
harm when
harm's
they
way,
walk in
yeah,
our school
yeah,
doors. So
yeah.
it may not be everything you want for your child, but
Mhm.
I promise what we're putting in place is the best that we can,
Yeah.
and we're going to keep them safe.
Yeah, and I think that's so true for both districts. We're looking out for the student's best interest with every decision we make. So we talked about a little bit of virtual learning. We just touched the surface of this, and we have a question about that. It says, children who choose the virtual schooling or online school, what are some recommendations for parents as far as socializing in the social emotional? So how can they still get? We know social skills are huge, especially in elementary school, building those. And for those who are going to stay online, what are some things that they can still do to build those social skills up?
Take it, Kelly.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say one is have a discussion with your child of social and emotional expectations that you have. They're different for home versus school, and there's some that you want them to learn at home and then take over to school.
Yeah.
But just be open with them. If you want them to use manners and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, like we talked about the social distancing stuff, start having conversations right now. Start practicing some of those things right now because they aren't going to come natural because students have been out of school for so long
Right.
and they're going to be in a totally different environment. It's not to scare you. It'll just look different. So,
I think there's two questions there. I think I'm hearing two separate questions. I'm going to try to answer both of them. One question I think that maybe people are asking is, how do I get my child who is learning virtually opportunities to interact with other children?
kids, yeah.
And then also, I think I hear the question about social and emotionally, what can I do for my child? So I'm going to answer. The second one, the SEL, the social emotional learning question first.
Okay.
I'm going to give another resource. So actually, I'm going to give you three resources. The Indian, sorry, listen, my Stratera runs out at like 4 o'clock. Steph knows. Okay. So it's just hang on. Here we go. No, one is parents can go to the Indiana Department of Education.
Okay.
Social and emotional and behavioral wellness page.
Okay.
I will tell you that I believe that the Indiana Department of Education Social and Emotional Behavioral Wellness initiative is the best thing I have ever seen the Department of Education do in my career. Now, I'm not a teacher, so I'm sure they've done some great curriculum things, but I'm telling you that if parents are looking for resources for that, I would point parents towards that. You can actually go in to that page and you can click on the toolkit link there, and you can click on I've got a 3rd grader, and it will actually pull up an entire year worth of curriculum for social and emotional learning for students, and those are very doable things for parents. They're very doable things for kids. I want to jump over to the EVSC side for just a second, and if I say this wrong, I apologize, but the Evansville-Vanderburgh School Corporation has a fantastic SEL site on there. I can't tell you how to get to it, but I've been there. I've stolen stuff from you. It's great stuff. We've shared stuff. We'll call it sharing. All right.
That's right.
We've shared stuff. But they have a fantastic site, and all of the EVSC parents might want to consider accessing that information because that's going to align with when their kiddos come back. They're going to see You want to talk about that, and then I'll jump back to the Warwick County.
Well, and I was thinking of what I was going to say before. I was thinking of from a personal and a home standpoint, you have to know your own child. If you have a student that struggles with anxiety and fear, you are going to need to start finding resources to help them manage that and deal with that, because it is going to be an issue, and maybe some of those issues are going to be a tad bit amplified. So yeah, the school does have resources, but you might want to start talking to your child about if they're afraid of the dark, if they have anxiety about going to certain areas alone, or not being able to consistently talk with someone else.
Yeah, and just because those kiddos are at home doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to receive some of those resources that they got at school. So for example, a lot of us have partnerships with Southwestern Indiana Mental Health Center, and we have students who are able to work with those either therapists or skills trainers. Just because a student is at home doing virtual learning of some sort does not mean that student would not be able to access services through somebody like Youth First or Southwestern or something like that. So please, just because you're doing that, don't think, well, it's just all on me, because that community of service providers, all of our community partners are still out there. Those machines are all still chugging. So that's still going. In Warwick County, you can access some of our SEL, social emotional learning tools are available on the Warwick County website as well. You can go into that section and access that. And I'm sorry for giving you a long one.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to get those resources out there to people.
Absolutely. No, that's good. We do have a few more questions. We got about 10, 15 minutes left. I don't want to keep these guys all night. But this is kind of like when we were shut down for the first time. For those of you that have kids, what was it like trying to teach your own kids if they're elementary grade level? What were
I'm going. I got this one.
I'm next.
The exact same struggles. It does not matter that I've been a teacher for this long. When it came to teaching my own 2 kids, it was a nightmare. First, they see me as a mom. They don't see me as a teacher. So I did not do correctly what Miss So-and-so did, even though I have the same degree. And I think just the biggest struggle for us, too, was our home was our home. It was never a classroom. So trying to get them to understand that was a big hurdle in our family. So just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that I succeeded at homeschooling in the springtime.
I'm glad you said that. I really hope my wife is watching on this one because we butted heads because my idea of education at home and hers
Totally different.
did not
Yeah.
align. And it's hard. We all know it's hard.
Yeah.
And we try to be realistic with you. And I would say if you are going to utilize the virtual learning option, just communicate with the teacher to make sure you aren't missing something. If you are going to miss a deadline or you're just stuck and do not know what to do, just reach out. It's better to communicate with them and bounce ideas off them than to sit at home and just struggle and your child struggle, because it can just be so taxing on a family.
Yeah.
And it was ours, and we're educating
That's what we
people.
do, yeah.
I had the same issues, and I think one of the challenges I faced was I was working all day. You know, teachers were asking me questions and emails and parents, and I was still trying to organize things that were going on at school or things that needed to happen, as well as my husband was working full time, and I had a high school student and a first grader. So, you know, who didn't think I did anything right either? Because she
called you
said,
out.
yeah, Mrs. Love doesn't do it this way.
Yeah. So I think the same challenges for educators face the same thing as you did. So, which brings us to the next thing. So when we first shut down school, like nobody was prepared at all. Nothing was in place. There was no plan. So if it was to go back that again, I'm not saying it will, but if we do go back to just online only for a time or a period of time, how do you feel now moving forward with conducting your class online compared to the first time around?
I'll take that. I feel more prepared. Obviously, we've had plenty of time to research, where I just in the spring used Zoom as a social aspect. Now I've learned so many more techniques to use it as a teaching platform. Just like I said, a lot more time to train ourselves and be more prepared. There are still things that make me nervous with it all virtual, just because I'm so used to being in person, and first grade's all about learning to read, that I do have anxiety as a teacher, making sure that I present it. But I think the time that we've had to train ourselves and really wrap our brain around it has prepared us that if it happens in the fall, it will be different for us teachers. We'll be more effective in it.
Yeah.
But then it also requires parents to realize that it's different than the spring. That,
Yeah.
you know, we were in scrambles in the spring, and in the fall, if it's virtual, you have to be on your game as a parent as well, making sure you're providing that structure and those expectations, those assignments are getting done, and it's not just kind of thrown to the wind at times.
Yeah, that's good.
And I believe we'll be so much more prepared. We'll know how our parents best communicate on more than just an email or a phone call basis. We'll know what is realistic for our students, how much is too much work and how much is too little when it's at home, because we never saw this coming. So I really believe that both districts are much more prepared than ever if that happens again, and be in just a whole lot better place.
Yeah.
You know, we were kind of caught in a spot too. We are not one-on-one initiative. I know your children have computers. Ours did not at the elementary school, and so just setting up, email addresses for students so that they're able to get on, get online, and get on that platform and be with their teacher. Resources that we found that can help. So just being more prepared for that computer aspect, setting up hotspots around our, around the school where people can go to get internet. Just all of those challenges that were upon us immediately that we didn't have a solution for right then.
Yeah.
I think of a couple of teachers in our building now, they're more comfortable getting behind a camera and teaching instead of finding a YouTube video and trying to hope that it fits the lesson that you've provided. Now they'll get behind the camera and teach the lesson, and it'll be tailored to your classroom and your student. I think that's paramount for our building for sure, to see their teacher teaching the lesson.
Yeah.
One other quick thing that is related that we haven't talked about is, when this crisis first hit, the schools in so many ways were the first line of everything. So you had teachers who were trying to figure out how to teach, how to learn how to do this a different way, and who were also figuring out how to feed families,
Yeah.
take clothes to people. We had building principals calling saying, oh my gosh, these people have lost their jobs. We
Yeah.
got to get beds to these families. So they were the emergency responders for the community initially as well. And one of the things, you know, talk about hands and feet of the church. Look at how the church has had an opportunity to step up in our
yeah.
community. Look at how community organizations have had an opportunity to step up. And man has the Tri-State ever just really knocked that out of the park in a lot of ways. We're really fortunate. But what I did want to say is that, you know, I saw these people, right? I saw these people up at the crack of dawn out there slinging sandwiches and packing bags and doing,
Yeah.
and then heading home to, you know, to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this class ready to do this thing online, or put these packets together, or call my families, or and make sure my kids are okay, right? The teachers were worried about their kids, right? They just aren't back tomorrow. And so those things really are things that I think, as the community has really stepped up, have allowed administrators and educators to go, okay, everything's not going to collapse.
Yeah.
I can concentrate a little bit more on doing my job, because they were doing everybody's job
Yeah,
there for a
trying to do
little while.
everything. Yeah, no, that's good. I want to get to just a few more questions here we've had come in, and this one's for more administration. It says, how will the administration help their staff emotionally, as maybe this will affect their emotional health and spiritual health if the burdens progress? So I don't know if there's anything you guys have at your school or district-wide in place for your
Well,
teachers.
we're actually partnering with the Foundry, and Mr. Dora and Miss Bassett, they have worked really hard to try to get teachers some, you know, relief, stress relief, mindfulness, things like that. You want to talk about some of the things that you guys have set up with the Foundry partnering?
Yeah, sure. So one of the interesting things we were able to do over the COVID time that we were away actually was to partner with a lot of the local communities, and I'll talk about the Foundry one here for a second. You know, we had an opportunity to take a handful of our schools and some of our educators and administrators that are really under a tremendous amount of stress.
Yeah.
And the Foundry partnered with those schools and actually did virtual painting classes, kind of a
Okay.
painting with a twist classes, where teachers were able to get together and collaborate online and have a little fun, laugh, you know, let off a little steam
Yeah.
and share. And then they also did virtual arts classes. They
Okay.
did dance classes and yoga classes and exercise classes. We partnered with Youth First,
Yeah.
who came in and did mindfulness training and mental wellness training for some of our teachers. And we're going to try to continue to expand on that in Warwick County. And so another resource for if there are educators listening, again, I want to point you back to the IDOE Social Emotional Behavioral Wellness page. Please look for on there click on the Project Happiness. That's available on there. And if you're an educator, you should know that not only is it a phenomenal program for social emotional wellness for you individuals, it's a magnificent journey, but it also carries like 40 points. Yeah, for
40
PGP points. I
Okay.
mean, that's how serious the Department of Education in Indiana is taking educator wellness right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Wow.
you don't get 40 points for doing anything,
Yeah, no,
right?
yeah.
I mean, they're really serious about that. But for our educators, but you don't have to be an educator to do that. I mean, parents can go do that, administrators can do that, people in other careers. But it's really tailored specifically towards our educators. So we're encouraging a lot of our schools are kind of taking that on as a
Yeah.
group. The whole school's going to move through Project Happiness. So they're really trying to step up those social emotional wellness issues for our teachers
That's
as
good,
well.
yeah.
And EVSC has a phenomenal initiative for that stuff as well.
I agree, and I believe one resource that teachers are going to get, and I don't want to say believe because I know they are in EVSC, is they're going to receive COVID-19 training to get a full understanding of what it is, what it looks like, how to respond to your children. And also a hot topic that has gone on since the students have been out of school is the racial inequality. They're also going to be receiving information about that so they can teach their children how to deal with it, what it is, how to have an appropriate conversation about it, what to do when people are different from you. There's a lot of things, and right, you know, COVID is kind of like just taking over everything, but there are several underlying issues that I know both districts are trying to prepare for, and you got to really pick and choose where you want to put your eggs at right now, but they're receiving professional development, training, and information.
Which
So-
is really great because that's impacted everyone in the community. So, so for our kids, our families, and our educators, that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get to 2 more questions. This last one is for Warwick County specifically. It says, so for Warwick County, when will each day's color, and in parentheses they say red, yellow, or green, be decided? So I have no idea what they're talking about there.
I'm assuming they are referring to the plan. So green means we're going to school.
Okay,
Yellow,
okay.
the yellow, I'm assuming that's what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
maybe, I don't
Yellow
know.
would mean that we're doing some online. Maybe we're shut down for a couple weeks.
Okay.
And that will be decided based on, the daily progress
Yeah, of everything
of
changing. Yeah.
what's changing. And just so you know, our superintendent isn't just making decisions on his own. I mean, he is very concerned about children's safety. He puts, that is of utmost important. He will err on the side of caution. And he is working with, deaconess advisory boards, the health department. He's getting lots of consultation from others to do what's best for kids.
Yeah. And I think that's true for all districts, is that they're not just winging it by themselves.
Right.
There's a lot of input going into the decisions being made, more so than just education, but also on the health side. And so with the last question, we just want to end here. Again, we want to thank you guys for coming out and spending some time with us this evening. But tonight, as we end here, maybe parents are just they're just worried. Or maybe some students are worried, or they're just not sure of what school is going to look like. Will school ever be the same? And we don't know that answer to that question. But what would you say to a family of yours that goes to your school, just to give them some hope, some peace about we can get through this together? So if you could leave it with one last word for a family you see in your school, or for a student that's watching, or for a parent, what would you say to them tonight?
I would say, we love you, and we are still the same. We haven't changed. Our hearts haven't changed. Our love for you. I always promise parents, I'll keep your children as safe as I possibly can. I'll educate them as much as we possibly can, and we will love them like they're our own children. And that hasn't changed, and that's not going to change. I may not be able to physically grab them and hug them like I normally do, or them run up to me and give me a hug, or a teacher, but it may be an air hug. It may be, they're going to know. I think I said this when we were handing out food and packets. Just because I have a mask on, that mask can't hide a smile that comes from the heart. And it's still there. It's still all the same. It's just some different procedures. We just love you. That's never going to change. That's a constant.
Yeah, and I echo the same thing with her, that to let your student and the families know that we love what we do. Like, it's very much has changed, but when I take a deep breath and think about and just let the stress part go away, I'm excited. It's going to be August, and I'm ready to get back in the classroom, whether it's in person or virtually. My job is what I love to do, so I'm ready to see their faces, whether in person or virtually. I'm ready to start educating again, and so I hope that excitement isn't covered up by all the topics that everyone wants to talk about. That we are truly excited to see your kids, and we do love them. They're our own kiddos, and we're ready to see them back.
Yeah.
If I had an encouraging word, I would just say that God's in control right now. Coronavirus, and this is for a lot of Christians, coronavirus is discussed, or COVID-19, more than the Lord Jesus Christ is in a home of Christians. So just remember that God is the same today as he was yesterday, and he will be tomorrow. Just because we have this pandemic going on doesn't mean that God has changed.
That's
Amen.
right, yeah.
Amen.
Mine would be turn off the news.
There it is.
And we sort of joke about that, but I can't help but take for just 1 second to take this down the neuroscience pathway.
Yeah.
And for us to remember that whatever your daily diet is what your mind and body becomes. And we have a lot of ability to impact for our children. And what you are putting into your brain and into your body, and what you are sharing with the brain and body of your child is what you are going to become and what your child is going to become. And if I'm going to choose what I'm going to put into my brain and body right now, it's going to be prayer and it's going to be family. Turn off the news, spend some time together, and it will change your brain and it will change your life, and pray together.
That's amazing. All those answers are amazing, and so hopefully this has been encouraging for you tonight. I know maybe we got some questions coming at the end that we weren't able to get to, and we apologize for that. But we want to keep them here forever. Again, we want to thank you guys for coming and spending just a little bit of time and talking about just a little bit of information we know. And so just hopefully this gives you some hope, some more clarity, and despite the uncertainty, that we're trying to work at this together. And if we can all come together and make this as best as possible and maybe a bad situation, we can get through this. We will get through this. And so with that being said, if you get this and see this later, or if you like this, would you just like and share this to let people know a little bit more about what's happening here in our cities with the schools? And then you can always find these. So if you come back to this later, or you missed this, or you weren't able to watch this whole thing, you can go back and it could pop up on Facebook. It'll be on our YouTube channel. And next week, we want to remember it's Life After Sports. And we got some college and pro athletes who made it to the NBA and played professionally. Who are going to come and sit in these seats and talk about what happened after Life After Sports. And in this community, sports is so big, and people put their hope in sports. And we're going to talk to some of the guys who make it and see what their story is like. So with that being said, we hope you have an awesome rest of the evening. God bless. Stay safe. Stay prayed up. Stay encouraged. Stay hopeful. It's going to be okay. God's still in control. And like Marvin said, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So he was good back then. He's good today, and he'll be good tomorrow. We hope you have an awesome rest of the night. We'll see you next week.